your hope. We get out of here, you in the shower sing.
This is Dystopia Now, a show where a comedian and an academic explore the philosophies and religions of Silicon Valley and the tech billionaires shaping our country, our world, and our future. I'm Kate Willett, and my co-host is Emil Torres.
That's when it suddenly hit me. Let's let the filthy billionaires all leave for Mars, 'cause we don't want them here. Electrified.
Hello, and welcome back to Dystopia Now. I am Kate Willett,
I'm Emil P. Torres.
and today we are joined by a comedian who is my good friend, and I thought it would be really fun to have a comedian on because the feedback that I've been getting from the listeners in the YouTube comments and on the reviews and people who write me is that you like the show, you love the information, but that you're terrified of the tech billionaires who are just doing this stuff. And so we thought
As
today,
you should be.
yeah, we thought today it would be very fun to have a comedian on who could help us joke around and bring some levity as we explore the difference between Jeff Bezos' vision of going to space and Elon Musk's vision of going to space. So welcome to the show, Kenise Mobley.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to finding out more so that I can be more specifically terrified.
So what's your immediate thoughts, Kenise, on moving to space? Do you want to go? Do you want to stay here?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. See, humans evolved here for this particular environment, and I'm not really interested in throwing my organs into space and just seeing what happens. I would like to stay in New York, honestly. Yeah.
And what if there was someone who was just like, would you move to space for a partner? Like, if they got a job in space and it was a very good relationship.
So I am one of those chronically single people who cannot imagine loving someone so much that I would do that. It's like, I see that love exists, and I'm like so happy for other people who have that. But me personally, I can't imagine liking someone enough to put truly my cellular development on the line. I just can't.
It's actually a trick question because only weird losers want to move to space. So
And that's not who I date.
yeah, yeah. So it won't be an issue because no normal person is going to ask you to go to space. Emil, when you first brought up the possibility of this topic, I was actually surprised because I didn't really know that Elon and Bezos had that different ideas about going to space. I figured that the situation was they just both want to go to space, and it probably had something to do with creating a libertarian colony out there where there's no labor rights and they can be feudal lords. But it sounds like they actually do have a pretty different sort of aim with space. So I was wondering, can you give us just the sort of intro version of what the differences are between those two?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the libertarian aspect of their visions is pretty similar, right? So, I mean, they're both art capitalists, and, they have these visions of going out and creating new cities, new states that are free from all the oppressive regulatory apparatuses that we have back here on Earth. But there are other senses in which their visions differ. So, for example, Elon Musk, as just about everybody I think knows, is dead set on getting us to Mars. I think probably one of the only witty things that Musk has ever said is that he wants to die on Mars, just not on impact, just not landing the probe. And so, yeah, so he wants to go to Mars, send these spacecraft full of, maybe hundreds of people to start to build colonies. And the ultimate goal then is for these colonies to become Earth independent, right? And this fits in with his grander vision of long-termism, of trying to maximize the total amount of value in the universe, of building this sprawling multi-galactic civilization in the far future, because Mars is a stepping stone to the rest of the solar system, right? There are other moons out there that could also be colonized. And the solar system is the stepping stone to the galaxy and then to the rest of the universe. And this sort of differs from Jeff Bezos' view, because Bezos acknowledges what Musk sort of denies. So Musk, you can look this up. He was asked about his views on colonizing Mars and so on. And he literally said, and I quote, "Fuck Earth." So
Fuck Earth.
And so Bezos doesn't have that view. Bezos recognizes that Earth is this extraordinary oasis in a really hostile universe. And that, Mars, the average temperature on the surface of Mars is minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, right? That's about the same temperature as Mount Everest in January, the coldest month. in Mount Everest. So why would you want to go to Mars and like try to terraform it, to geoengineer it, to give it an atmosphere, which it doesn't have, to make it, warm it up a little bit? All of that is just so much effort to make this really unlivable, really hostile environment something that we could tolerate. So Bezos instead wants to build these spacecraft. He actually took a class when he was at Princeton that was taught by a professor whose first name I'm forgetting, but the last name is O'Neill. And people might recognize this name because there are these spacecraft that O'Neill designed that are called O'Neill spacecraft or O'Neill cylinders. And they're basically just these huge cylinders that would rotate. So that would give them a kind of artificial gravity.
So like the movie Interstellar.
I think so. So I haven't seen Interstellar. I haven't watched many movies. I'm sorry. I'm culturally illiterate in many ways.
I haven't seen Interstellar either. What do they do in that movie?
So in Interstellar, which, okay, some people say it's like Nolan's best film, but they're completely wrong. Interstellar is just fine at best, but they're having to figure out how to get off of the planet Earth. And eventually they have this vision of living in these spaceships that are like not on Earth, but are simulating Earth. And it is a large cylinder, and there is rotation there that makes it so that gravity is simulated.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, so maybe that's a really good point of reference. That is an O'Neill cylinder. And the idea is that you might have millions of people living in these cylinders. We would construct them. They'd be powered through solar power. And so Bezos's view is that this is a much more feasible way of getting ourselves into space. And for Bezos, the goal really is about expansion and energy use, right?
Mhm.
So he thinks like, okay, Earth is really precious, but the thing is, there's this capitalist machine. And people have endless wants and desires and so on. And so we're using up more and more energy, but Earth is finite. And so at some point, in order to satisfy these energy demands, these energy needs, we're going to have to go out into space and live out there as well.
What?
So,
It costs so much money to do that. Like, battery efficiency has like more than doubled in the last like 3 years. And so why is it that we would pour all of this stuff into getting off-world, which further deplete the resources, instead of just fixing things here? Is that off the table? Or
I mean, I think it kind of is, because we're building more and more technology that requires more and more power, right? So even just like at the, AI systems, the large language models that power ChatGPT and so on, they're really energy intensive. This is why Microsoft bought the nuclear power plant 3 Mile Island, so that they can restart the nuclear power plant in order to power their all the training that they do with these systems. So, the other thing to point out is like, idea is that space is full of resources. So there's like minerals that are really valuable that, the quantity is limited here on Earth. So if we go out into space and we start to mine asteroids, for example, there's a whole lot of money to be made there, a whole lot of resources that we can use to further advance our sort of spacefaring ambitions.
what if we just didn't do that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, we could go and mine asteroids or meteorites, and then based on that, we could go further. But what if, hear me out, we didn't do any of that, and what we did was make sure that like plastic wasn't in our blood? What if we just like worked on that?
Yeah. So I'm sure probably some listeners have heard of these studies recently about how the amount of microplastics that are in our bodies, right? So there's one
Yeah.
study recently that found that by weight, our brain is 0.5% microplastic.
And
And
then
I bel-
probably Elon's is even more than that, I would
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. We're looking at 50-60% in that situation. Yeah.
I can't remember if it's per month or per year. It's probably per year, but we're like consuming a credit card. Like a credit card's worth of plastic, we're just eating it, and it's
Yeah.
in our bodies.
Yeah.
And so maybe let's focus on like, because yes, maybe we can blow up a thing to shoot us towards a meteor or whatever, and then we can mine it for metals. But can we recreate? We can't even recreate trees well. So like maybe we should focus on the thing that like makes it so that we can eat and breathe.
One of the, at least with respect to Musk's vision of colonizing Mars, he wants to terraform it, to make it livable, to make it like Earth, which requires controlling atmospheric, geophysical, and so on processes on a planetary level. We can't even do that at all here on Earth. Like, we can't stop climate change, right?
Yeah.
And yet we're going to go to Mars and completely change the whole planet. Musk's proposal, which, as far as I know, is not taken seriously by a single scientist, is that we should nuke the poles. And
What? Okay. Why? Why do we have to nuke the poles? Please
so people,
elaborate.
have even sold shirts that say Nuke Mars, right? Because of this proposal. So I think the idea is to inject, I might be getting the details a little bit wrong because it's been a while since I read any article about this, but I think it's to inject water vapor into the atmosphere. So Mars has like a very thin atmosphere. The atmospheric pressure is way less than here on Earth. But if you inject water vapor into the atmosphere, it might heat up the planet because water vapor is a really powerful greenhouse gas. Right. So here on Earth, like carbon dioxide is the primary driver of climate change rather than water vapor. But on our planetary neighbor in the other direction, Venus, it had an atmosphere very similar to the one here on Earth, but there was this runaway greenhouse effect with water vapor. That was the main driver as opposed to carbon dioxide. That ultimately Venus is completely uninhabitable because it's way too hot. It's like, I can't remember, something like 800 degrees on the surface.
That's not really like a nice beach vacation. That's a little much.
But I mean, all these processes are just really, really complex. And scientists have pointed out that if you want to live on Mars, like go live on Antarctica or climb to the top of Mount Everest, where the atmosphere is really thin. You can't breathe for very long without a supplemental oxygen. Otherwise, you get hypoxic, you get dizzy, and you lose consciousness. Go live there for a couple years, see how you like it. And if you do, then sure, you've got a good argument for going to Mars. But otherwise, it's a bizarre fantasy. And it's not even clear that we could get to Mars in spacecraft, because just the space between Mars and Earth, first of all, it's really far. It would take months to get there. Imagine being like cooped up in a tiny spacecraft, maybe stuck with perhaps some people you don't really like, but you're stuck there for a really long period of
Elon
time.
on the plane? That is what I
Right.
want to know.
Exactly.
Just everyone on the plane, they didn't make it. They died on the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think we have a model for this, and it is like the, I guess, transcontinental traveling that people were doing when they were trying to settle the American West. And there were lots of people there already, but they were like, we are groups of white people, and we are going to travel for months and months. And a lot of Donner parties happened where everybody killed each other and ate each other. So this is a bad idea.
And you know that Elon can't wait for this to degenerate into cannibalism. He's he's obviously pretty stoked about that, even if he won't say.
And have you guys seen, like, this is, I don't care how dorky this is, I'm going to say dorky things. That's who I am. Okay,
That's
have
fine.
you seen the new Star Trek movies where they have to fight against the Romulans who just go planet to planet, depleting resources? Do we want to become the Romulans? No, we don't.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the criticisms. Is it behind this push to colonize space is this just ideology of rapacious consumption. And, the universe is just standing reserves out there waiting for us to go and plunder it. Maybe that's not the right way to think about the universe in these sort of capitalistic terms of exploitation and extraction and so on. So I completely agree. I mean, also, Musk and others have been explicit that at least the first several voyages off to Mars will almost certainly be one-way trips. So people who sign up will sign up for a trip where they're probably going to die at some point. There are going to be these sort of Donner Party situations.
Okay, hear me out. Some of the people who would sign up, we wouldn't necessarily want here. And so, if you're telling me you're going to put a bunch of Musk bros on a spacecraft and ship it into space, I am more interested in it.
This is kind of our theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want the billionaires to go to space. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, Kenise, you mentioned the westward expansion of white Europeans in the US, which was justified using this idea of manifest destiny. And that has also been invoked many times in talking about going to Mars, or even just spreading into space by building these, vast mega structures called O'Neill cylinders.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Manifest Destiny was when you could, they were practically still burning women for witchcraft. Manifest Destiny is like God told you to just, and
Yeah.
these people aren't even religious. Okay, sorry.
I mean, Trump actually mentioned manifest destiny in, I think it was the 2025 inauguration speech. So this idea is, we were talking about these other ideologies like transhumanism and long-termism, and manifest destiny is definitely a key aspect of that. Expansion, colonialism, and so on. These are built into the ideologies that are being embraced by tech billionaires like Elon Musk.
Maybe we should feed people first. Like have we figured it out all here so well that we need to spread it to other places? I'm not convinced.
Well, okay, so there's actually a whole philosophy that these guys have about why it doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying I agree with the philosophy, I adamantly don't. But there's a whole philosophy that these guys have about why feeding people down here is a waste when it comes to, our priorities, that being on Mars and other planets should come before dealing with global hunger, for example. Emil, do you want to give like the couple sentence explanation of that?
Yeah. So yeah, Kate, you're exactly right. It's about global priorities. What should our priorities as a species be? And there are 1.2 billion people in multidimensional poverty, right? Some 700, and I can't remember the exact figure, but more than 700 million people in extreme poverty. So that's really bad. And a lot of individuals in this community of long-termism and transhumanism and so on, would agree that that is very bad. But when you compare the badness of global poverty to the badness of failing to go out and colonize space, right, and create this massive civilization. We'll talk about this later, but this sort of Kardashev 3 or Kardashev 4 level civilization, we could explain that later on. The failure to do that second thing, is so much worse. And so if we have our priorities in order, we'll recognize that okay, sorry, we have finite resources. We just can't sort of waste our resources on helping the global poor, because there's something much more important here. Musk himself has said that one of the main motivations for colonizing Mars is what he describes as a humanitarian motivation. In case there is a global scale catastrophe here on Earth that might wipe out, all 8.2 billion or whatever it is, 8.3 billion people here on Earth, if we have Earth-independent colonies on Mars, then humanity can persist.
Instead of making those societies ones that people would want to live in by consistently providing for the members of this overarching society, we need to have even greater stratification between the haves and have-nots so that the haves can live on a place that may make them safe, as long as we on Earth deplete our resources trying to get us there, making overall both societies worse. That's what I'm hearing.
You're not wrong. But we've all seen the meme, the galaxy brain meme.
Yeah.
Right? So they would say that you and me, and I think Kate, are up here at the first level. If you take a grand cosmic perspective on things, then you understand that, okay, we are at the very beginning of civilization. Civilization's been around for 6,000 years, but the universe will remain habitable for a really, really long period of time. Earth alone will remain habitable for 800 million years. At least, maybe a billion years. So when you take this grander cosmic view, there may be injustices that are required or at least excused in that transition to becoming this spacefaring civilization that is able to spread to different planets in our solar system, other solar systems, and so on. That end is so important that the means, whatever the means are, can easily be justified. And again, if those means involve wealth disparities, it involves sort of ignoring the plight of the global poor, well, take a grand cosmic perspective on things. And
Have you ever seen one of those couples where they are clearly dysfunctional and everything is going wrong, and they're like, let's bring a third into this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe y'all should fix your relationship first. Maybe you'd want to have a nice place for someone to come into. So why are they're like, no, we need to stop focusing on fixing our relationship and we need to bring in a third. And it's so you can ruin the third's day? What?
Yeah, Mars is their third. So I have a question. Okay, so we've talked a lot about why they want to go to space. What is the kind of day-to-day life, do you think, that they're envisioning for human beings once we're out there? I mean, to be clear, I don't think that this is going to happen, but let's say these guys get their way. What are we doing out there?
so this is a funny thing. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with what's been written on this topic, especially within that sort of long-termist community that Elon Musk is a part of, or at least the community that he has promoted over the years and said that is a close match for his own personal worldview. And there's just almost no talk about what exactly life would be like if you're actually living on Mars or in one of these O'Neill cylinders. It gets even weirder when you imagine our life not as biological beings living on Mars or in these vast O'Neill cylinders, but rather as digital beings living in computer simulations. So here's the thing. There are at least two main reasons why a lot of people in the long-termist community that Elon Musk has promoted think that we need to become digital, right? So one is in order to maximize value. How do you maximize value? Well, you maximize the total amount of people who exist in the future, right? Because the more happy people there are, I don't know why they'd be happy, but the long-termists just assume they would. The more happy people who exist, the more total amount of value there is in the future.
Well, okay, let's stop right here just for
Yeah,
a
sure.
second and say that at
Agreed.
least he's not a hypocrite. He is doing his best to make more people. He is
Yep.
one of the top deadbeat dads out there right now.
He's got 14 now.
14
Yeah.
children?
Yeah.
That's so.
That we know of.
Have a condom. That's fucking gross, dude. I'm sorry. No.
Actually, I know. I think that almost all of them were conceived with IVF so that he could control the gender
To select the
male
genes. I
at
think.
birth.
He's
Yeah.
working with the Republican Party, who's like fighting IVF. So we're just saying it's okay for the super rich to do it, but not for like a person who's struggling to have a single child
Yeah.
and not even choose its gender, just like to make a baby because it's hard after a certain age. Oh my god, I'm
Yeah.
furious.
No, it's disgusting. Yeah, he's
That is one reason for becoming digital, because you can basically cram more digital people per volumetric unit of space than you can biological people. So that's why we want to become digital, to live in these computer simulations, because there could just be a lot more.
Okay, so there's like lots of people in a hard drive or whatever, but like, why?
So your confusion indicates that you're following along.
yeah.
I was in this community for the longest time, and I really believed in this vision. And one of the things, so this was like 8 years ago. One of the sorts of conversations I'd have with people that forced me to think a bit deeper about these philosophical commitments was people who are reacting the way you are. And the answer is that obviously what you want is the most amount of happiness in the universe, right? So Musk himself has said, and I think I'm more or less quoting a tweet of his. He said, there will always be sadness in the world. What matters, I think, is that we maximize cumulative civilizational net happiness over time. That was his line. So that is just long-termism. The more happiness that there is in the universe between now and when the universe itself becomes uninhabitable, which is a really, really, really long time from now, 10 to the 100 years from now, the more happiness there is, the better the universe as a whole will be from the point of view of the universe.
If that's the case, then right now, mass produce heroin and give it to everybody, and they will take heroin until they die. And it will
Yeah.
just be heroin, 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 and you'll be happy, happy, happy on heroin, and then you'll die. Like, if that's not a good measure of, like, what about productivity or, like, the ability and freedom to, like, try new things? Like, what can I make or functionally do if I'm just on a hard drive? Like,
Yeah.
what? Okay.
So this is an excellent question. And one of the critiques from some individuals of this view is, so for philosophers out there, it's sort of this hedonistic interpretation of utilitarianism. So I know that's a lot, but it's basically, okay, well, actually, if it's just happiness, if it's just pleasurable experiences that are what make the universe valuable, then what we really should do is try to invent a type of material that is optimized for producing pleasurable experiences. That's just what it does, kind of like heroin.
Like a
And s-
vibrator. And so you need to fill a plane with vibrators and have it fly over different countries and drop everywhere. And then, I mean, if we're spending billions of dollars to get to space, we might as well just do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about this. I mean, just imagine, like, if you just preserved like the pleasure centers of the brain plus the vibrator, then that's sort of like getting you a bit closer to utilitarian. That's what this substance is called. And so ultimately what you'd want is just convert the whole universe into utilitarian, which is just matter. You know, there's no friends, there's no society, but it's just matter that is just feeling pleasure constantly, intensely, all the time.
How would you even know what pleasure was if it was not in contrast to anything? Okay, I'm trying to think of something that was an extremely pleasurable experience. You know, if I was getting a massage on a beautiful beach. Okay, if I did that every moment of my life, it would be so boring. I want to read a book.
Your muscles would be too relaxed.
This is one reason I think the utilitarian view of ethics that underlies a lot of these ideologies that we've discussed is really impoverished. You're right. Like, what about like boredom? There are a bunch of other things other than pure pleasurable experiences that we actually value. If we create a future that emphasizes only one of these things, like pleasure, then we miss out on other aspects of the experience of being a conscious being in the world that are really valuable and are part of the glue that makes life worth living in the first place.
Look at, like, if I'm just a pleasure center, I'm not encountering problems, solving them, pushing us forward as a society. So that would, in effect, be the end of society because there would be no movement past that if we're just orgasm boxes.
So there are some people in the community who have tried to wiggle out of this by claiming that maybe there are other things that we should value as well, in addition to happiness or pleasure, basically the same thing as far as philosophers are concerned. Like maybe there are aspects of the human experience like friendship and knowledge and progress and so on.
I love these tech guys. They're like, what about a friendship? I have heard some people have had a friend that they enjoyed their presence and spent time together. Have you heard of this?
Did you hear Mark Zuckerberg? This was years ago. He misspoke, and I believe the line was, "When I was human."
That's so funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Kenise, I think all of your points here are good, and a lot of these people will try to wiggle out of saying, okay, it's just pleasurable experiences, and so that way they can avoid this critique based on utilitarianism. What the critics say, well, you actually just have an obligation then to create this utilitarian shockwave that just spreads across the universe at near the speed of light and converts everything into just matter experiencing pleasure. So one way they do this is by pointing to these other possible values. But I think one point that's really worth emphasizing here is that nonetheless, even when they make room for other things we value, there is an underlying view that whatever it is we value, we need to maximize it. More is better. 2 walks on the beach is better than 1 walk on the beach. 2 great symphonies are better than just 1. 200 symphonies are better than just 100. More. And utilitarianism historically emerged right around the same time as capitalism. And this is one reason I've said that these movements basically reduce morality to just a branch of economics. Really, it's just capitalism applied to the moral domain.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's so juvenile. I was with my boyfriend's niece and nephew, and they're little, tiny, wonderful children. And they were negotiating at the end of every dinner the amount of Oreos that they could have. And they'll be like, I want 5 Oreos. And their mom is like, 3. And then they're like, and I don't want to eat any vegetables. And she's like, well, then it will go down to 2 Oreos. And they're like, what if I eat a box of Oreos? So the mom was there because she understands as an adult that if you eat 18 Oreos, you're going to feel really horrible. But the kids don't understand that yet. They think if 3 Oreos is good, if 2 Oreos is good, then 18 will be even better than that. And that is what these tech bros feel to me. It's like they're just little children who just can't bring a sort of adult or wise understanding to what actually makes a person feel good and what actually makes a meaningful life.
I completely agree. There's a line in a book on long-termism by a philosopher named Will MacAskill. And in fact, Elon Musk retweeted a link to this book and said, a close match for my philosophy, which I'd referenced earlier. In the book, MacAskill says explicitly, a civilization that is twice as long is twice as good, or a civilization that is twice as big is twice as good. So it is just this really simplistic, bigger is better. MacAskill literally says that.
Like, going off of this cookie metaphor, I was thinking similarly, in it just adding a layer to it is like, okay, people on Earth tend to like sex, right? But we would not say that the best person at sex or having orgasms is the teenager who went to my middle school who's like, I masturbated 7 times on Sunday. We wouldn't say he is the best. We wouldn't. He has had more orgasms. But when we look at the way that people like sex, it is for a variety of reasons, not just the orgasm. And they are looking just at quantity of orgasms is better.
I want 75 Oreos into JO until I bleed.
Get the Dalai Lama out of here. Bring in that kid with the 75 Oreos.
Can I give you one more example?
Yes, of course.
Kind of a shocking example of this general sort of thinking, quantitative thinking about value. And it involves a really famous philosopher named Derek Parfit, who's one of the most influential ethical theorists of the 20th century. And I would characterize him as the grandfather of long-termism. because he really laid the philosophical foundations for the long-termist ideology, and a bunch of the founders, major figures in long-termism, were students of Parfit's. And so there's a story of him, which is verified, that he saw a film of Adolf Hitler dancing a little jig after Hitler found out that France had just fallen to the German forces. And Parfit's response to that is, even though there was all of this harm caused to the people of France, all the people who died, and so on, all of that is negative. That's negative value. But on the other hand, for what Parfit said was, at least something good came out of the fall of France, because Hitler felt a little bit of pleasure. And what matters is increasing pleasure. And you'll take pleasure or value wherever you can, even if it is someone like Hitler who's a little bit happy. Does that story make sense? So it's Hitler's doing this little jig and he goes, yeah, at least something good came out of it.
I mean, that's really dangerous because, in my opinion, you think about someone like Elon who is actually sig heiling, and it's extremely concerning to know that these people, not only just in a sort of like abstract way, they actually think that the pleasure Nazis take in doing Nazism and white supremacy is as worthwhile as the right of the victims of Nazis to live their lives. Like, that's actually... it's horrible. I mean, I'm not treading new ground, I guess, but Nazis are bad. Yeah.
It's ignoring the fact that, like, say, take slavery. Slavery, the slaves not happy about it. I'll say that. And then the people who own them, you're like, oh, but they derive value, but they had to structure their entire life and civilization around keeping someone else down. They had to structure their entire sense of well-being in opposition to this idea of what bad was. And as a result, both parties are experiencing the negative. They're not even acknowledging the fact that there is a potential happiness far greater than the dance that Hitler did when he found out that France had fallen. That, hey, maybe they all could have been happy if, like, as a kid, he had been, like, hugged and someone said, your art ain't half bad, kid. Like, that there's all that happiness that they're ignoring as well. This potential happiness that is being completely eliminated by war and genocide.
Yeah, or that's not even real happiness for Hitler, that's some sort of sociopathic coping mechanism, and that it's all just extremely concerning. I guess one thing I'm wondering is, in terms of space colonization and exploration, it doesn't seem to me that they've actually made very much progress on doing this stuff in real life. Like, I was reading that, when it comes to Mars, that basically we figured out for the time being that it's probably just going to be forever impossible for human beings to live on Mars, that there's just no way to get enough supplies and resources. There's probably no way for humanity to procreate out there, so it seems to me like we haven't made that much progress. I don't know why I'm putting myself in with these people. It seems to me that this stuff is mostly, it's not so much that it's going to happen, but that it's a justification for the things that they're doing right now. For example, with Doge dismantling the government and just the other horrible shit. And that maybe even Elon knows that we're not going to Mars anytime soon.
Your question here gets back to the second reason that we need to become digital. So this is, we're talking about this like a half an hour ago.
And the first reason is that so we can just spend 100% of our time coming. I'm making sure I'm clear on the first reason.
Being digital enables us to maximize value.
Well, how maximize my value? How?
The sort of value that they're referring to is intrinsic value. So this is supposed to be a kind of value that is valuable in and of itself. So it's not valuable relative to anything else. It just is valuable. So, and again, their position on value is that whatever it is that's valuable, you need to maximize it. That is a very capitalistic way of thinking about value, which I reject. I don't think the right way to respond to value is always just to maximize it, just to create more and more and more. There are other responses you can have. But their claim is that, okay, it's just intrinsically pleasure, whatever is just intrinsically valuable. And as such, if the universe has more of it, the universe itself is better from the point of view of the universe. So I would emphasize again that your confusion is like perfectly reasonable. And lots of philosophers like myself, even though I didn't used to be confused, I used to think, oh, that makes perfectly good sense. We should maximize value, intrinsic value, whatever that is, pleasure, something. Now I'm very much on your side, and it's not clear to me that a universe that contains, let's say, like 100 trillion people, each with a positive amount of value of unit one, is better than a universe with just like 10 billion people that have like a value of 100. even if the total amount of value in that first universe is larger than the one in the second. This is actually called the repugnant conclusion. It's this view that utilitarians would prefer a world full of some vast number of people with lives that are just barely worth living to a world where you have a much, much, much smaller number of people with excellent lives. Because in that second universe where people have excellent lives, you might have less total value. So,
Boo.
right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is the very most extreme version of these philosophies. And I don't think that most people who aren't like deep in the tech bro sauce believe this stuff. But I hear echoes of these philosophies and the type of logic that you're explaining, even in very normal liberal stuff. For example, effective altruism, which I know has, like, for example, the lib favorite magazine Vox has a whole section devoted to EA. Like, yeah, I guess, to what extent do you think that, I don't want to say normal, but like semi-normal people who would be publicly considered as liberals, Ezra Klein, let's say, like, to what extent are people who are not like Elon Musk level nutty embracing some of these conclusions, and how is that playing out?
Good question. I mean, I think, first of all, like you said, the effective altruism, you described it as liberal. And so there are a lot of people, there are surveys done of the effective altruism community that report that most people do identify more with the left than with the right.
Yeah.
But if you look more closely, I mean, there are views that many of these people embrace that are pretty far right.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, I absolutely agree.
yeah.
And I think that that's true about liberals in general. Like,
Yeah,
I think that
fair.
I think that MLK had it exactly right when he was talking about the white moderate, and that is the effective altruism movement.
Exactly, yes. I completely agree. I've mentioned that quote from his letter from prison.
From
Why am I
Birmingham jail.
Birmingham
Yeah.
jail.
Yeah. Letter from Birmingham jail in some discussions of EA. Because they're exactly that white moderate that is the biggest problem. And so, I mean, they're like, they tend to be sympathetic with eugenics. There's a tolerance for far right views that you don't find in actual progressive or leftist circles.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, EA, nonetheless, it is very utilitarian. Toby Ord, one of the founders of EA, has said that the pillars of the effective altruist movement are the scientific revolution and utilitarianism. I think there's a third pillar too, but I'm not remembering. But it's a very quantitative, very economic way of thinking about ethics, where
Yeah.
the bottom line isn't maximizing profit, it's just maximizing value in this more general kind of quote unquote morally significant sense.
And do you know about abundance liberalism, Emil? Have you encountered this so far? Abundance liberalism is this philosophy. I don't even know philosophy. It's this kind of economic view being promoted by Ezra Klein, Matt Iglesias, kind of a lot of the Vox crew, that they also have ties to EA. To me, it seems like a lot of the abundance, quote unquote abundance, that they're talking about is in this utilitarian context where it's about, kind of this bigger, better, everything huge, and we're going to maximize value. It has sort of a utilitarian undertone to it that I do think is right-wing.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. A lot of these people in the EA movement, individuals like Ezra Klein, I believe he's referenced this before. There's a website called Our World in Data, catalogs data that is relevant to assessment of whether the world is getting better or worse over time. And so it takes this very quantitative approach in arguing that in fact our world has gotten significantly better over time. Like the total number of people who are making less than, whatever it is, $1.90 per day has declined. But there are deep problems with this quantitative, I would describe as quite impoverished approach. Jason Hickel has published some good articles that go into detail about why this way of thinking is wrong.
Jason, I actually want to read more of Jason's work, but I'm just clarifying. We're talking about the professor that has written a lot about degrowth. He is enemy number one to these people. It's interesting because
We must protect Jason Hickel at all costs.
yeah, no, these these tech guys, it's interesting because if it's like, you think about someone like Jason Hickel, who is a professor, or, somebody who, they'll pick on sort of, random socialists from like San Francisco. You'll see them, go after somebody who is just a mom who volunteers with the school board, and they'll really go after these people very hard, and it doesn't sort of make sense for the amount of influence and power that some of their critics have. But there seems to be an emphasis on winning an ideological battle that has to do with sort of eradicating traditional progressivism or socialism completely and replacing it with this hyper-utilitarian viewpoint.
I'm worried that some listeners or viewers might be on the edge of their seats waiting for that second reason we need to become digital. I've come so close to mentioning it now on several occasions,
I'm so sorry.
and we've had fantastic tangents.
Yeah.
But so that second reason is that we probably won't be able to traverse space as biological beings, right? So those are two reasons: maximizing value, becoming living in these vast computer simulations in the future. But also, how do we get to other solar systems in the first place? The closest star to our star, which we call our sun, is Proxima Centauri, right? And that is 5 light years away. So if you're traveling at the speed of light, 186 some thousand miles per second, then it would take 4.25 years to actually get there. But we have no idea how to travel that fast. So if we send out a spaceship, it's going to take like tens of thousands of years. Fastest thing we've ever created is the Parker Solar Probe. So we sent it out towards the sun to take pictures and so on, and that travels at something like 430,000 miles per hour. Right? So that's really fast. It would take the Parker Solar Probe more than 7,000 years to get to Proxima Centauri. So take just a really, really, like, imagine being cooped up in a very incommodious, like, small space, maybe with some people you don't like Elon Musk.
In older sci-fi, what would happen was that people would hibernate for those periods of time and then be reawoken. Why is that technology less likely and less advantageous than digitizing our brains, which we have, we killed a bunch of monkeys, I heard, trying to do some of this shit. So, why? Tell me more.
Yeah. So I think one of the arguments is the fundamental problem here is biology. Biology is just really fragile. And Kenise, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, we evolved for a very specific environment here on Earth, right? With limited, for example, ultraviolet radiation. There are other things out there like cosmic rays and so on that are blocked out by the atmosphere that protect us. So the atmosphere protects us and so on. So in space, we are subject to much higher levels of like solar radiation, even just the fact that there's no gravity. Well, technically we're in microgravity. So we're sort of free floating. That affects bone mineral density, muscle mass, and so on. So even just like cryogenically freezing ourselves for like 7,000 years, that still comes with all sorts of costs. And the idea is that computer hardware is much, much more robust and can just handle the extreme environments that we might encounter out there. So really, maybe we can't even make it to Mars, but perhaps let's just say we can get biological humans on Mars. If we're going to get to the next star, and even more, the next galaxy, Andromeda Galaxy, we're going to have to become digital. And you're right, we have no idea how to do that right now, but there are a bunch of these tech bros who think that we will digitize our brains in our lifetime. Sam Altman himself said this explicitly. Within his lifetime, we'll have our brains digitized. That's why he signed up with a company called Nectome.
If I was digital, why would I give a shit where I am? Like, does it matter if I'm on Mars? Does it matter? Like, why are we doing this? What's up?
I think the idea is that if you want to create more people and create a bigger civilization, you're going to need more energy and more resources. And so that's why you go out and you colonize space and you literally build what are called Dyson spheres around stars.
Most people you meet, you don't even like. And you're saying you want more people. That's insane to me. There's this, if you want to get pregnant, I never do. But if you want to get pregnant, that's your business.
Yeah.
But like, that's like okay, there's some limits there. It takes 9 months to grow people. Also, you got to feed mom and baby. It's a whole thing.
I think you're totally right. I mean, it's just a sort of fundamental part of the worldview that more is better. Here's, I think, a helpful way to think about it. There are two ways to increase value in the universe. One, and first of all, I should say, the way that they think about people is as these containers of value. That is all you and I are
Just a
Right.
little sack of value.
That's exactly right. So, famously, some philosophers have said you should always treat other people as ends and never as mere means. The utilitarian view is the complete opposite of that. We are just means to an end, and the end is maximizing value. So we're just these containers of value.
Okay, where
Yeah.
do those people go on vacation? Where those people go on vacation is not like the most crowded like section of Mumbai where they have the smallest possible space. That is not where they go on vacation. They recognize that their happiness, that where they want to pursue that is a relatively secluded place away from all us poors. And then they
Yeah.
have like some nature and stuff. So if we really want to maximize happiness, no offense to all these people, but we got to lower the number of people and then we can have some more of that seclusion that they seem to demand so frequently. I'm furious at this. Furious.
So this is why we go out and expand into space.
Well, this has been an amazing discussion, and this worked out exactly as I hoped. I really wanted to see the facial expressions of someone encountering disinformation for the first time. And
Never heard
Kenise,
these ideas before. Thank you.
you were amazing. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where can our listeners follow you?
You can follow me at Kenise Mobley, and I used to say all the platforms, but I'm sticking with the one that's least worst, I guess. So I'm on Instagram, so follow me there. You can please come to a show. My website is KeniseMobley.com, where I list shows and fun, cool projects like this that I'm doing. So you can, follow along, but in like a respectful way. Don't say weird shit to me.
We did say some weird shit to you, but
Yeah.
it was part of
we
the...
were in the conversation together.
Well, this was very fun. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks so much.
See ya.
Dystopia Now is a co-production of Emil Torres and Kate Willett. Our theme song is Hunger Strike by Emil Torres. We have no outside funding or advertising, so if you can become a contributor on Patreon, we deeply appreciate your help keeping the show going. We are a brand new podcast, so please rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice, and we'd love your help getting the word out. Thank you so much.